Cultivating compassion is the theme of this month. And I want to show you my definition of compassion. Oh. Like in the deepest part of me, this is how I feel. Oh. And I want to do something about it. Compassion has been part of the language since the 14th century and comes ultimately from Latin. Com and pate, meaning to bear, suffer with. What is the difference between empathy and compassion? They both refer to a caring response to someone else's distress, while empathy refers to an active sharing in the emotional experience of the other person. Compassion adds to that emotional experience a desire to alleviate the person's distress. It is one of the cornerstones of our faith and a goal for any caring individual. Compassion, love, and justice inform Unitarian, Universalist principles and communal practices. It's built into our religious tradition, just as it is a part of every faith tradition. At the heart of the Universalist theology is a radical and enduring claim that no one is beyond the reach of love, and that divine grace extends to everyone. This belief in universal salvation emerged not as a soft-hearted alternative to hellfire and brimstone, but as a bold theological confrontation with cruelty and fear. Early Universalists rejected the idea of a God who would condemn anyone eternally and insisted instead on a God whose nature, very self, is love itself. This was a theological revolution, grounded in compassion, that every person is worthy not because they earn it, but because they are. For Unitarian Universalists today, the legacy invites us to practice compassion that is not selective, nor is it conditional, but wide enough to include the flawed, the difficult, and even those who we struggle to understand. What might it mean to let compassion guide our view of humanity as whole and holy, even when our instincts would rather close the door? Compassion demands a lot of us. It means doing unto others as I would have done unto me. As much as we aspire to be compassionate, it is sometimes, actually often, hard to do. Despite an agreement that it's important, things seem to get in its way. So what is it that gets in the way? What prevents us from acting compassionately? For one, our egos. This is the part of us that needs to be right, to defend our own ideas and territories, to protect ourselves so we'll feel better, and to blame others. This is the part of us that has an inflated sense of our own self-worth. Egotism places us at the center of existence and makes other people's needs and interests peripheral. It separates us from other people and places a distance between us. All too often, we hold a bit too tightly to having our own way. We get caught up in who's right and who's wrong, and that happens in personal relationships with spouses and partners. It's pretty evident in politics and also among religions that argue their own right way of believing. And then we start playing the blame game. There's an awful lot of finger pointing in the world. It's our egos that push us into placing blame. In the public square, the battle over who's right and who's wrong can become callous, inhumane, even violent. as we all know too well. Another way we exert our egos is to look for scapegoats to take the blame for problems. There are numerous examples of blaming the victim that exists in our lives and seems to represent social ills. Placing blame on a person who is homeless or mentally ill or suffering from an addiction insulates us from the need to feel compassion for them, to look to other structural failures. I'm not suggesting that individuals shouldn't be held accountable or responsible for getting the help they may need or for the way they continue to add to their own difficulties. But we can take this so far that we lose our humanity. We lose our humanity in the process. Sometimes we may need to admit we feel helpless or angry or afraid in these situations, and that we simply just don't know what to do. Our tendency in this country is to have things on our own terms. We'll all remember the slogan, "Have it your way." Today, not only is pretty much everything able to be customized to our particular set of specs, but we expect to have it our own way. Relationships don't work that way. Human interaction doesn't work that way. We can't always have it our way. We can't customize other people to meet our specifications. The only way to be in relationship is to make space for others. This means making room in our hearts and minds for the possibility of someone else's reality. I want to share something with you this morning that I found really amazing. How many of you know that there is a charter for compassion that makes this all very clear? The charter was an outgrowth of the vision of a wonderful scholar by the name of Karen Armstrong, and it was launched at the United Nations in November 2009 to advance key principles of compassion and actions globally. It is helpful in shaping our understanding of compassion and guiding our actions. It's a call to restore compassion to the core of religion and the world. It's a call for us to make compassion central to our personal lives and our public lives. It's a reminder for us to be intentional in our treatment of one another and all of creation, moving us to look beyond our own ego-driven interests and instead to give our attention to alleviating suffering and healing the world. The Charter concludes with this vision for interconnection. Born of our deep interdependence, compassion is essential to human relationships and to a fulfilled humanity. It is the path to enlightenment and indispensable to the creation of a just economy and a peaceful global community. The Charter offers this up. Compassion calls us out of our narrow, self-centered selves, saves us from wasteful self-involvement, and opens us to the well-being offered to those who share themselves, their resources, and their love with all of humanity. I offer that compassion is the stuff of our spiritual path. It is the path that leads us to be able to see the divine in every single person, to recognize in each person a spark of divinity. This is what we mean when we talk about the first Unitarian Universalist principle, which affirms the worth and dignity of every person. Can you remember how it felt to be one with the world? Do you remember what it felt like to have the walls of separation between you and creation, between you and something else, between you and everyone else dissolve, even for a moment or two? Many of us describe this experience as a sense of mystical oneness with all life and all that is. Many also describe this as experiencing a compassionate presence. At that moment, there's no longer an insistence on me and mine. We may have only fleeting experiences of that oneness, but it's enough. It's enough to help us realize the potential we have for walking in somebody else's shoes. It is enough for us to experience the regenerative, peaceful power of compassion. And in those experiences, we can each see that capacity in ourselves. We experience what it means to let go of our own egos, even if it's only for a few moments. And I offer, we can do something to make a better, more caring, and more just world. The world we actually live in, by learning to live out that experience. So what might this look like on a practical level? Well, I'm going to invite you to do something right now. You ready? Okay. I would love to have you tell everybody what you see in this congregation as practicing compassion. Yell it out. I want to hear it. How are we practicing compassion here?
Providing meals for people in need.
Thank you. All right. All right.
All the committees together.
All the committees. Let's kind of do it one at a time. We're kind of excited here, right? Okay. Anything else? Let's think about creation. What do I see out in the parking lot once a month? A car that says what?
Glass recycling.
Yes, recycling glass, recycling there. Lois Van Leer was a friend of mine. How many remember Lois? You know what sign she had over her desk? Give a damn. And that is one thing I know about this wonderful congregation. Some other actions that we might take is to learn more about the Charter of Compassion and actually signing the charter. Would the board please look into that? Signing the Charter for Compassion, easy to find. Another possible action would be to dedicate ourselves to teaching our children, our grandchildren, children about compassion. Not teach it, do it. And how about regularly using compassionate language? Seriously committing to taking a simple, compassionate action every day. And there's one thing I've forgotten in my little talk this morning. I forgot about self-compassion. And I would like to read this to you. This is a poem by James Cruz. My friend and I snickered the first time we heard the meditation teacher, a grown man, call himself Honey, with a hand placed over his heart to illustrate how we too might become more gentle with ourselves and our runaway minds. It's been years since we sat with legs twisted on cushions, holding back our laughter, but today I found myself crouched on the floor again, not meditating exactly, just agreeing to be still, saying honey to myself each time I thought about my husband splayed on the couch with aching joints and fever from a tick bite. What if he never gets better? Or considered the threat of more wildfires, the possible collapse of the Gulf Stream, and then remembered that in a few more minutes I'd have to climb down to the cellar and empty the bucket I placed beneath a leaky pipe that can't be fixed until next week. How long do any of us really have before the body begins to break down and empty its mysteries into the air? Oh, honey, I said, for once without a trace of irony or blush or shame, the touch of my hand on my chest, like that of a stranger, oddly comforting in spite of the facts. We don't need to pledge to be compassionate 24/7 because that's pretty darn impossible. But we can identify one specific commitment we can make. What is it about compassion? It invites us back to ourselves, back to relationship, back to community, We are called back to the divine, whose name, among others, is compassion. And may we heed that call. Amen. Blessed be.